History is everywhere in Virginia. 4 of the first 5 presidents were born in the state, giving it a head start on the record of 8, the most of any state. 2 of its top tourist attractions, Mount Vernon and Monticello, are homes of presidents. Virginia also claims the most Civil War battlefields of any state and the places where both the Revolution and the Civil War ended. The colonial capital of Williamsburg, now restored to its 18th century appearance, was among the hotbeds of the Revolution. But it's not just history that brings tourists here. Visiting the state's natural wonders, including Luray Caverns, Natural Bridge, the barrier islands of Chincoteague and Assateague, and Shenandoah National Park are some of the top things to do. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at the top 10 rated tourist attractions in Virginia. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more awesome travel guides and make sure you hit the notification bell so that you know when we publish a new video. So now let's cut to the chase. At 10, Luray Caverns. Luray Caverns contain breathtaking examples of calcite formations within an extensive underground system that sometimes feels more like an alien landscape than a terrestrial natural landmark. Visitors can walk through the caves and admire these limestone crystals, which have, over the centuries, formed an impressive landscape. Among the highlights are Titania's Veil, the giant double column, interior lakes which magnify the scene, and a one-of-a-kind musical instrument called the Great Stalacpipe Organ, which creates music using the stalactites themselves. In addition to the caves, visitors can also enjoy other attractions as part of the admission. The Luray Valley Museum explores the history of the Shenandoah Valley throughout a 7-acre 19th century village, which is filled with both authentic and reproduction buildings and artifacts. The Car and Carriage Caravan Museum features historic vehicles, including an 1897 Mercedes-Benz, and Toy Town Junction is home to an antique train set and toy collection from the 1940s. At 9, Virginia Museum of Fine Arts. The more than 22,000 works in the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts are largely focused on modern and contemporary art, especially European art after 1900, American art after 1950, and 21st century art worldwide. Within that, several special collections stand out. The Ludwig and Rosie Fischer collection of German expressionist art includes works in all mediums, paintings, woodcuts, etchings and lithographs, with a particular focus on the Die Brücke artists. The growing collections of works reflecting African-American experience and expression includes works by African, African-American and African diaspora artists. A suite of 5 galleries display the largest public collection of Fabergé and Russian decorative arts held by an American museum, including silver, enamels and an exceptional group of 5 Fabergé Easter eggs made for the last 2 Russian Tsars. Other noteworthy collections feature Art Nouveau and Art Deco works, French Impressionist and Post-Impressionist art, and significant holdings of African, Asian, ancient, pre-Columbian and Native American art. And now at 8, Maymont. Walking through the landscaped and manicured gardens of Maymont, it is hard to imagine this 100 acres as the pastures and fields of the dairy farm it was before James and Sally Dooley acquired it in 1886. The opulent mansion was completed in 1893, and for the next 30 years, Mrs. Dooley worked with a team of top landscape designers and horticulturalists to surround it with gardens and an arboretum, turning it into a showpiece worthy of any Gilded Age millionaire. Hundreds of rose bushes, beds of annuals, and perennial borders bloom throughout the seasons, and exotic trees from around the world shade garden paths. Highlights are the Japanese garden and the spectacular terraced Italian garden, with its fountains, cascade, pergola, and stonework of Petersburg granite. The mansion is a blend of Romanesque Revival and Queen Anne styles, its restored interior complete with original furnishings and collections from the Dooley's travels. At 7, Jamestown and Yorktown. Colonial National Historic Park encompasses both Jamestown and Yorktown, where the Revolution ended. Jamestown is the oldest British settlement on North American soil, established in 1607 by Captain John Smith. Only the foundations of the 1639 church tower, the churchyard, and the outlines of a few other buildings remain of the original settlement, but you'll find a recreation of a Powhatan village based on contemporary drawings and archaeological finds, and replicas of the 3 ships that brought the settlers from England: Susan Constant, Godspeed, and Discovery. Jamestown settlement was built in 1957 to commemorate the 350th anniversary of Jamestown's founding. A museum and exhibition galleries focus on England's colonisation in the New World, the history and culture of the Powhatans, and Jamestown's first 100 years. The statue of Pocahontas by William Ordway Partridge was erected in 1922 in memory of her role in smoothing relations between the Native Americans and the settlers. The statue of John Smith by William Cooper was erected in 1909. Triangular James Fort is a recreation of the one constructed by the colonists, with thatch-roofed structures representing Jamestown's earliest buildings. Although none of the original buildings are still standing, the foundations are still in place, and you can see them on a half-mile walk through Newtown, part of Colonial National Historical Park. It was Yorktown battlefield that the English army under Lord Cornwallis surrendered to the combined American and French armies, paving the way for American independence. The events on the battlefield are well documented and easy to understand from the interpretive displays and dioramas. Park rangers also include frequent tours, and you can see the early 18th century Moore House where Cornwallis surrendered. Nelson House, which has a cannonball lodged in the wall near the upper window, is well restored and an excellent example of Georgian architecture. Grace Episcopal Church has been standing since 1697 despite the ravages of war during the sieges of Yorktown in 1781 and 1862, and despite the fire of 1814. Communion silver dating from 1649 is still in use. Next up at 6, Monticello and Charlottesville. One of the finest country houses in the United States and one of the most visited presidential homes, Thomas Jefferson's Monticello is a Palladian-style mansion he designed himself, inspired by a villa outside Vicenza, Italy. He continued altering and improving it over a period of 40 years, from 1768 to 1809. Throughout the house, you'll see several of Jefferson's inventions, which show another facet of the versatile man's talents. To the rear of the house are the extensive historic gardens, also designed by Jefferson, and below is the family cemetery with an obelisk marking Jefferson's grave. An interesting outdoor exhibit, Landscape of Slavery, Mulberry Row at Monticello, sheds light on the lives of the people who worked and lived on the 5,000-acre plantation. The Monticello Visitor Center has more than 400 items on display, an introductory film, and hands-on activities for children. Jefferson founded the University of Virginia in 1819 and also designed its red brick buildings. Be sure to see the outstanding rotunda. Fans of Edgar Allan Poe can see his room in the West Building. The university's art museum has a permanent collection of American, European, and Asian art. Not far from Monticello is Highland, the country house of President James Monroe, with beautiful period gardens. At Mishi Tavern, built during Jefferson's time, you can dine in 18th century surroundings. Next up at 5, it's Mount Vernon. George Washington's home from 1754 until his death 45 years later, Mount Vernon was a work in progress under Washington's close supervision, even while he was leading the Continental Army during the Revolution. The architectural design, construction, and even interior decor in each renovation and addition received his personal attention, resulting in the gracious 21-room plantation house you see today. You may be surprised at the vivid paint and wallpaper colours throughout the house, but these shades were popular in the late 18th century. The bright green walls in the new room were Washington's favourite. Unlike many historic homes, Mount Vernon is filled with personal reminders of George and Martha Washington, family portraits, crests, and the couple's belongings. The grounds and gardens overlooking views of the Potomac River were a great pride of the first president, and again he took a personal part in their planning and care. He chose a less formal and more natural plan than his predecessors, reshaping the lawns and paths and planting native species of trees and shrubs. The outbuildings have been preserved or reconstructed, and you'll often see the many skills used on the plantation demonstrated: blacksmithing, ploughing, sheep shearing, weaving, even grinding grain at the water-powered grist mill. At 4, Arlington National Cemetery. Spread across 600 acres overlooking Washington, D.C., Arlington National Cemetery is where some of the most famous people in the United States are buried. The most visited are the grave of President John F. Kennedy and the tomb of the unknown soldier. Kennedy's grave is marked by a slate headstone covered with Cape Cod fieldstone and contains inscriptions of his 1960 inaugural address carved in marble, as well as an eternal flame. The tomb of the unknown soldier is carved of white marble and watched over by an honor guard 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. It contains the remains of soldiers from both World Wars and the Korean conflict and the Vietnam War. The third site tourists look for is the famous Iwo Jima Memorial, the Marine Corps War memorial depicting the Joseph Rosenthal photo of 5 Marines and 1 sailor raising the flag on Mount Suribachi. Other notable monuments include the Seabees Memorial, sculpted by former Seabee Felix de Weldon, who also created the Iwo Jima Memorial, and the Women in Military Service for America Memorial, a tribute to all women in the US military. Arlington House was built in the early 1800s by George Washington Parke Custis as a tribute to his step-grandfather George Washington. However, the house is most famous for being the residence of Robert E. Lee and his wife for 30 years until they abandoned it during the Civil War. Lee was commander of the Confederate Army of Northern Virginia during the American Civil War. The house has been restored and now serves as a memorial to him. Near the mansion is the tomb of Pierre L'Enfant, who designed the city of Washington, D.C. His original city plan is etched in stone, and his burial spot commands a beautiful view of the city he planned. The mast of the battleship Maine is incorporated into a memorial to the casualties of the ship that sunk in Havana Harbor in 1898, leading to the Spanish-American War. And now at 3, Virginia Beach. Named for the wide expanse of golden sand that stretches from just east of Norfolk, Virginia Beach is a very popular and often crowded resort town with the expected hotels, amusements, and a long boardwalk. If the Atlantic Ocean is not warm enough for the children, take them to the 19-acre Ocean Breeze Water Park with Caribbean-themed water slides, a wave pool, and water playground. The Virginia Aquarium and Marine Science Museum explores the climate, seafloor, and fauna of the coast with an 800,000-gallon aquarium, hands-on exhibits, and a touch tank. Outdoors is an aviary, nature trail, marshlands to explore, and an adventure park. More than 9,000 acres of coastline has been protected in the Back Bay National Wildlife Refuge, where you'll find walking and hiking trails and picnic facilities at the visitor center. This is a favourite spot for birders, as more than 10,000 birds visit annually, including snow geese, falcons, ducks, and piping plovers. The Atlantic Wildfowl Heritage Museum displays historical and contemporary waterfall decoys. To visit the 1791 Old Cape Henry Lighthouse, which opened up the Chesapeake Bay area to safe navigation, and the nearby new lighthouse built in 1881, you will need to pass through security at the Fort Story military base. Between Virginia Beach and Norfolk is the entrance to the 20-mile-long engineering marvel Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel, which spans the entrance to Chesapeake Bay, connecting the mainland to Virginia's eastern shore. At 2, Colonial Williamsburg. Few places can recreate a setting for the period of the American Revolution as well as Williamsburg, where the original 18th century buildings are either still standing or have been faithfully reproduced on their original foundations. Here you can stand where Patrick Henry gave his stirring speech, walk the same streets as Thomas Jefferson, and savour a meal where George Washington enjoyed seafood dinners. Williamsburg was the capital of Virginia from 1705 and throughout the Revolution, and the final battle of the war was fought nearby, so it was a hotbed of the independence movement, along with being one of the most prosperous and politically active colonial capitals. Costumed interpreters help show what life was like for the gentry, the farmers, and the slaves that lived and worked here, and frequent reenactments add colour and action that makes Williamsburg a fun place to visit for all ages. In addition, you can visit 2 outstanding museums of folk and decorative arts and dozens of authentically recreated colonial gardens. And finally, at number 1, Shenandoah National Park and Skyline Drive. In the centre of Virginia, Shenandoah National Park protects portions of the Blue Ridge Mountains, which range in height between 2,000 and 4,000 feet. Along their crest and running the length of the park is the Skyline Drive, the northern continuation of the Blue Ridge Parkway, with stopping points to enjoy the views and attractions, including President Hoover's summer residence and the Old Cave Cemetery below Dark Hollow Falls. The beautiful hiking trails are some of the park's main attractions. Flowering trees and shrubs are at their finest in spring and summer, but the park is best known for its autumn colours in October. Only a short drive west from the Skyline Drive on US 211 are Luray Caverns containing magnificent formations of stalactites and stalagmites. And there you have the top 10 rated tourist attractions in Virginia. Did you like what you saw? Let us know in the comments down below. Share this video with your friends and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more fantastic travel guides. See you next time.